Hello?
Hey,
Hey man, how are you?
doing well. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Um, okay, awesome. Let's jump right in, waste no time. So,
Yeah. What's up?
well yeah, just like what I kind of like what I was saying yesterday. I think it's very important that you and I try and build off what we talked about last time.
Definitely.
And start breaking down some matchups. I have some recommended matchups I think are easier to learn and kind of like translate well to other ones. But before we get into any of that, I just wanted to ask first and foremost, do you have any questions? How did last week go in terms of like implementing any practice or things that we talked about before? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we'll just do like a
So
quick
I do
Q
have
and A.
a list of just kind of small snippets and questions to run by you at some point.
Sure.
And apologies for not sending you the message just briefly. I was doing some friendlies just now, and honestly, time just got way ahead of me. I was kind of warming up for the
Totally cool.
session, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, it's 1 o'clock. Um, but yeah, I think I've definitely been implementing as much of what we talked about in the first session as possible. Things like not double jumping out of it's done and
Hmm.
bad habits, trying to nip those. Um, I did want to say I feel like maybe I like fooled you into thinking I'm just like better than I am maybe because I was going through all the posts in Kadoran's Google Drive
Hmm.
and like I mean I probably read through like maybe 30 of them or something and it
Yeah.
was just like almost none of them I was able to really kind of like really just even understand or like the ones that I
Okay.
did understand were like so niche to like a very specific situation of how you should act that it just felt like I don't have even like the basic foundation to even really like begin to implement those sort of things and it was
Sure.
interesting to sort of expose myself to all of it but yeah it's just it feels a bit more advanced than what I'm
No,
able to do.
that's totally fine. And like you said, I think you said you were only playing for a couple months, or was it 2 years? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, I've been playing for about 3 months, but with that
Okay.
said, yeah, maybe only closer to like 5 weeks of like really actively playing. I
Yeah.
would play like a game a week or every 2 weeks,
Sure.
3 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, and I mean in melee that's like nothing, right? Like
Right, right.
that. I was talking to someone. I was streaming last night. Someone said they were playing for 2 years, and I was like, oh well, like welcome to melee. Like it's such like a difficult game to get into. So people learn really quick, but some people like
Yeah.
they take 4 years to even get like a basic grasp on it. So that's totally a fine if you didn't understand a lot of the Kadoran stuff. We can walk through that. Um, so yeah, you probably I still think what we would talk about today in terms of like learning matchups is like a good on paper thing to kind of get you started and develop like good habits to begin with. But maybe
Yeah.
we can talk about a lot more like beginner stuff as well. I do think for how new you are though, your movement is very good. So I think that's like a very good sign that like you have like the technical ability to learn the game.
Hmm.
Um, but I think just as much as technical ability is important, theory and kind of like you need to know how to use your technical ability, right? So that matters a lot.
Yeah, I've definitely gone down that like classic rabbit hole of just like labbing out tons and tons of tech practice and then yeah, go into a game and none of it really works. So
Sure.
yeah, like my movement and stuff maybe is kind of fooling in a way. But
No, it's totally fine.
yeah, as far as like the matchup stuff, keeping it super basic in terms of what like general principles I need to be implementing, and then going into some of the specifics that are more important to that matchup, that would be excellent.
Okay. So no questions outside of that. You want to just jump in right in?
Let me look at what I wrote down.
Sure.
So, um, uh, I think probably the biggest thing that stuck out to me that I wanted to run by you is like when I'm analyzing my replays, I'm having a really hard time sort of identifying what I need to be doing in order to get a better outcome for that game. There's obviously like certain things like I'll go to do an up tilt and instead I jump, because I press the stick too high.
Mm.
Like obvious things like that'll stick out, but just sort of like rather than having to like show you a replay and say like tell me what I did wrong, like how do I sort of develop that knowledge of knowing how to analyze my own replays? And if you just have any advice in that, is it just purely experience and time,
No.
or
Yeah, there's a couple things like when it comes to analysis, you can be looking for a couple things, right? Like it's kind of the issue a lot of players run into when they're starting out, where like say they play someone in friendlies and the other person is just way better for them, and then they ask them, "Do you have any advice?" Right? And from the perspective of the person who beat them, oh sorry, from their perspective, it's kind of like not annoying, but it's like a difficult question for them to answer, in the sense of like, yeah, you could work on your punish, you could work on your recoveries, you could work on your neutral, your
Yeah, it's so
spacing, all
vague. I
that.
understand.
So I'm not saying your question right now is vague. I'm trying to say that when you ask yourself, how can you like find things in VOD analysis, I think you need to be looking for something specific more often than not. Like, an example would be, like I think the Marth Sheik matchup is a matchup like on paper is very difficult, but it's also quite simple in terms of like your game plan of what you're looking for. But also, like I said, it can be a little difficult in terms of like how you punish, right? Because it's not so like flow chartable like Fox or Falco.
Right.
So when you say like what are you looking for, you could be looking for your spacing. Like, how are you staying grounded where you need to? Are you staying away from Sheik when you need to? Do you have opportunities to move in? And you could watch through that video the whole time just looking at that. But you could also be looking at like, okay, I got to grab. What could I have done better here? Is there a position I could have put myself in better that would have made myself able to hit her more? Did I drop something? Like, could I have gotten something more off this up tilt? That kind of thing. So my recommendation for you, just because you're so new, when you're looking at VOD analysis, as an easy first step would be just look at where you're getting hits and ask yourself, could you have hit them harder in this situation? Would a better move, or would a different move have been better? Could it have killed harder? Would it have racked up more damage? Those kinds of things.
Sure.
I think a lot of people will get caught up on like you said, like if you meant to input an up tilt and you get a jump, it's like an obvious misinput error, and so then they'll instantly run to training mode or practice, right? Not missing that, which is fine. You'll solve that problem on its own, but that's not why you lost the match, right? You lost the match because you either didn't hit them as hard or you were letting yourself get hit too much. And like, sure, you could argue that you gave yourself an opening, but it's not like that's a common situation every game, and that's kind of the thing I feel like a lot of people are missing out on, is you want to be able to break down common situations while you're analyzing, but because you're so new right now, the important thing is just to be able to maximize your punish game. Because like I think we talked about this a little bit before, it doesn't matter if you lose neutral 100 times, but are still able to live, or your opponent's still able to live. If you can hit them once and they die, they're going to be terrified of you, right?
Yeah.
So for now, when doing analysis, definitely start with just maximizing your punish game. In terms of what that might look like, that could be something simple like, I got an up air here. What did I do after it? Did I push them off stage? Did I just up air them a million times? Blah, blah, blah. Right? So yeah, definitely recommend that.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay. So I just want to ask you before we jump into like how to build a game plan. Have you had the chance to actually rewatch our session from last time?
I watched bits and pieces of it,
Okay.
and I watched bits of some of your other VODs as well with other students.
Okay. No, that's great. You don't have to watch them all in full. Like again, like the video is there just for you to kind of like have an idea of what we talked about going into our next session, or you can always come back to it. I try and write little descriptions of what it actually was we talked about that day. So if you feel like it's not enough and like something's missing, for sure, just let me know and I will add more to it. But I'm glad you were able to take a look at it, because a lot of people kind of stop watching videos after a while. But it's like the whole point of why we do these sessions, right? So you have that information to come back to.
Yeah, and I did take pretty decent notes as well throughout that, so I kind of had the
Yeah. That's totally fine. I am just trying to find right now here. Okay. So I have like a little template, and I need to send this to someone else too, because they were asking about it. But I have a little template here of like what a beginner matchup plan might look like. So I have it for Sheik, but I want to ask you first: is there a certain character you're really struggling to play against? I have matchups that like I definitely recommend are um, I have matchups I definitely recommend are like easier to learn starting out, and I think translate well. But I still like throw the floor to you, like or throw the ball to you. If you have a matchup you'd rather learn from the get go, we can totally start with that.
Yeah, so it's difficult for me because it really comes down to like the player, right? Like I'll play a Falcon from like the
Okay.
newbie Discord channel and just get absolutely crushed and be like, oh, okay, my Falcon game is terrible. And then the next Falcon that I play on like ranked Slippy, I just crush him because he's worse. And I don't have a big enough sample size to really be able
Sure.
to like draw trends. You know what I mean? But
Okay.
with that said, I do have a few friends that I play friendlies with regularly, and perhaps the most brutal beatdown I consistently receive comes from a Puff
Okay.
and
Yeah, we can talk about that.
yeah, and then yeah, there's a Puff that I play against pretty consistently, and yeah, he's pretty difficult, and I find that it's like I can't really punish Puff because he's so floaty. So like the neutral game seems like it's more important, and my neutral game, if anything, is maybe my strongest suit offensively. My punish game is bad, but yeah, for whatever reason, I just struggle with Puff. So that could be an interesting one. I do more often than not though play against the Fox, so I'm kind of interested in maybe trying to learn that matchup as
Sure.
well. Putting that like priority on that. I don't really know. Maybe either one of those. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's fine. I think Jigglypuff is like a weird matchup to learn for like almost any character. You'll hear often that like, especially from a lot of old school players, they had the kind of common sentiment that like Jigglypuff doesn't quote unquote play melee because she's so different than everyone else.
Yeah,
Um,
so I worry like maybe we should focus on something more foundational and then
yep.
focus on Jigglypuff more niche later.
The issue though, with learning the Fox matchup is that with Fox, he has so many options and he has so many different ways to play that it's kind of hard to lock him down into like a consistent bubble of this is good versus Fox, this is bad. We could talk a lot about stage positioning with Fox and like good things to do against him, and that would be helpful for sure. But I think really until you develop your punish game, that's like really the most you would have to be looking for against Fox, right? Like he's one of the easiest characters to kill at low level. Um, so you really want to like make sure you can kill him consistently, and then you can kind of build a game plan from there. But the issue with Fox, in my opinion, when it comes to learning how to beat him, is that at a certain point you'll always like run into a wall against Fox of like, wow, this I can't beat this style of Fox, and then you have to build a game plan for that style, and then you go in and do the process over and over. So Fox is kind of like a tricky one, but I'll let you know the 3 to 4 matchups that I believe are like the most important for a Marth player to learn.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Fox. Still, like I said, I don't want to scare you off of it. It's just it's not as consistent of a framework as like other matchups because, like I said, they're all so different, and some things with Fox just aren't objectively great, but they can be good. So Fox is one of them. Uh, Sheik is another one. I feel like the more you play, the more you'll start to hear that like Sheik is an impossible matchup for Marth. She's so brain dead, like so much easier, so much more difficult. You have to work so much harder. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's true. But otherwise, once you do start to know what you're doing against Sheik, it becomes a lot more doable, and then you'll start hearing, oh, but it's even at top level, right? And why they say that is just because they know what they're doing against Sheik, and you can punish her just as hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But Sheik is a really good matchup for non-Fox Falco Falcon characters, which is like almost the rest of the cast to learn, because she's very like a lot of the stuff that are good in the Sheik matchup translate well to other matchups. So like if you learn the Sheik matchup, you'll probably be really good against like Zelda. You'll probably be really good against like Ness, Ganondorf, Game and Watch. Like because a lot of the things you learn against Sheik are just like fundamentally good Marth habits to have. Um,
Okay.
so that's one thing. The last one is kind of like a surprising character. I feel like most people don't really take the time to learn this matchup. They only really take the time to learn to beat the character with tricks, and then they kind of move on. But I think for Marth players especially, this matchup is like a very good like textbook example of like how to consistently punish a character and how to keep an advantage state. So how to be oppressive, right? Which I remember you said is what you like to do. Um, so that character is Luigi, actually. Um, Luigi has a very bad matchup against Marth, and he's a pretty common character in brackets where a lot of people will randomly lose to Luigi. But I feel like Marth players who know that matchup never do. I have not lost to a Luigi in tournament in years. The only time I have in recent memory was because it was extremely laggy and we couldn't play. And I just had to hold that. But then I beat them in that the same tournament anyway, so I'm not counting it personally. But I have not lost to a Luigi player in years. And it's just because on paper it is such a difficult matchup for Luigi to overcome, and it's such like an oppressive one for Marth to do, that it's really good habit building of like, okay, when you get an opening, you can push this as hard as you want and then build off it from there. So I'll give you an example of what I have copy pasted just from another Metafy session. This is an example of what a game plan might look like. Now, this is pretty old right now, so I wouldn't like read it word for word, even though like generally it's pretty helpful. But basically, when you're looking at a game plan, you need to be deciding, why is this character weak against Marth? Why is that weakness good for you, and what can you do about it? And what does this character have that's good against you, and why is that bad for you, right? Those two things, like, why is what they're bad against good for you? That might sound like the same thing, but it's important to distinguish, I think, their weakness and like why you can exploit that weakness, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So like, this is an example I have for Sheik. So like in general, Sheik really can't contest you vertically in the air. She's really bad when she's above you. There's not really much she can do. Another thing people don't really know about Sheik is that she has really bad horizontal drift, which means that she can't, when she's in the air, she can't really drift far to the left or right. She can't like hold right and go as far on the stage compared to someone like Jigglypuff or Fox or something, right? So it's really easy to stay underneath her and keep making sure she can't contest you vertically by up airing. And then she's simple to edge guard, so where you can kind of like start to flowchart her. So like if you get her in the air, why this is good for you. If you get her in the air with like an up air and up tilt, you can stay underneath her and she can't really deal with it. So she's either forced to try and trade it, which is often not very good for her, or every time she's in the air, that means she has to go off stage. And once she's off stage, you can consistently keep edge guarding her and get a stock. So your main goal against Sheik is to try and be underneath her as much as possible. Easier said than done, of course. And that's kind of where the next part is. Sheik gets a ton. Why Sheik is good against Marth? She gets a ton off grab at any percent, and they'll always do either a ton of damage or will kill you. And she can edge guard Marth super hard as well. And she often has massive hitboxes that are a lot better than Marth's in certain situations. And she's just fast, right? So why that's bad for you? That means you have to be careful around Sheik's attacks, and they can kill you at any percent, meaning you can't give her anything for free. You can't mash against Sheik. You have to manage your resources off stage more sparingly because she can edge guard you super well and deal with all her giant ranges. And you have to be aware of her threat ranges on stage and be careful of those. And then I just list off some moves at the end. But basically, once we had this all written down, right? And if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions, feel free to stop me or we can come back to it.
Yeah, no, this is great.
But basically what this all means is that we know what we're looking for against Sheik and how to get it. And we know what she's looking for, and we're looking for ways to avoid it, right? So just a quick recap. We want Sheik in the air. and we want to avoid being off stage against her as much as possible and getting grabbed by her or a quick move, right? So what might that look like when we actually try and plan it all out, right? We know our pros and cons now, but then you can kind of build off that. And that's where like player to player stuff might come in. So in general, if you want to be below someone, my thought process would be it'd be a very good idea to stay grounded against them and not jump in the air much, right? When it comes to dealing with moves like F tilt, up tilt, dash attack, and crouch cancel, let's ignore crouch cancel. F tilt and up tilt both hit in front of her in Sheik, right? Up tilt's a little bit of a weird move for Sheik. It's not a traditional up tilt in the sense it has a second hit that kicks in front of you. But dash attack also goes very far, right? So from my perspective, I would think if I'm going to play against Sheik, actually I should do this in Uncle Punch.
Yeah, if I the like F tilt, up tilt, I actually don't even really know what those abilities are for Sheik.
Oh, you don't know those moves?
No.
Okay. No, that's okay. So I'll do it so I can show it off here. I should be able to control Sheik actually. And then what I'm gonna do is put on here. This is what I want. So Sheik's F tilt looks like this, right? It's a very big move.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. This is the move. It's very big. It's terrifying to be hit by because it'll combo into fair. It's a combo move and a kill move, right? So this is her F tilt. It's the one where she kicks in front of you.
Yeah.
This is Sheik's up tilt. She does kick upwards, but then it has this massive like kick right in front of you that basically acts as like a second hit. So what I'm basically saying, it's hard to, maybe I can tab. Can you see my mouse if I do this?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So basically what I'm trying to say is that these are Sheik's really scary moves that Marth doesn't really have like much moves to kind of deal with this, right? You can technically forward air it, but if you'll notice, like, do you see a little bit right here how like this is Sheik's leg, the little purple part, and this is just a little bit of a hitbox? That's what we call a disjointed hitbox in Melee. So basically what that means is this circle is where like the actual move is, this big pink one. But the purple one is what you want to hit. So when she throws out a move like F tilt or up tilt. Sorry, I'm trying to get it quick, but it's very fast. Yeah. When she throws out a move like that, actually, you know what I can do? I can just do it frame by frame. Hold on. Okay, and I'm gonna make it the Z button. So basically, what this means is that when Sheik throws out, oh man, this is actually a lot harder than I thought. Sorry, give me a sec. when Sheik throws out an F tilt, right? There's no risk for her if only this part is the part that interacts with Marth, right? He can't hit that. He has to hit her leg. So what you're scared about is all this range in front of you. Oh my goodness, sorry. What you're worried about is all this range in front of you. Sorry, this is like really confusing for my brain. Okay, here we go. You're worried about all this range in front of you. So right now, see how it's barely gonna miss my arm? Mm-hmm. On the next frame though, it's gonna hit, right? And you can see here, this is what I'm scared of. I would love to hit Sheik, but there's this massive hitbox right in front of me that I can't contest, right? Mm-hmm. This is her forward tilt. I know this sounds a little complicated right now. I'm gonna make this simple in a second. But same thing with her up tilt. Up tilt also has a massive hitbox right in front of her where there's hitbox, but her body's all the way over here, right? Her leg's a little bit there, but there's hitbox surrounding it. So what does this mean for Marth, right? I wish there was a way I can make Sheik stand still, but I'm just going to like draw it out basically right like this. Okay. Basically what this means for Marth is that you want to stay at a grounded range that's outside of this move consistently. So when you're playing with Marth, you don't want to be close up to her like this all the time.
I see.
You'd want to be, imagine she's facing me right now, but you'd want to be somewhere like here consistently. I know the move only goes here, but another move that Sheik has that's really, really good is her dash attack. It covers a massive range, and it's really quick, and it'll kill you, right? So when Sheik does this move, it's really scary, but it's not as scary as something like this that's spammable, because you can shield this move and punish her directly for it. But because this move has such a big range, you can't shield this, right? Or you shouldn't be shielding it. So when you're playing with Marth, you want to be around like this distance away from her, or further, like this. So when she does something like a dash attack, you have a little bit of time to react and shield, but also it stops her from spamming these kind of moves, and then she has to commit. A lot of Sheiks will start getting scared, right? And they'll start doing dash attack, or maybe they'll start, if they realize that doesn't work, they'll try and jump above you in the air and try forward airing. But you can absolutely deal with all those anyway, right? Those are moves that are easily contestable. And by standing where you are, away from Sheik, and kind of sticking to like a central game plan, you're able to grab her a lot more easily. You're able to hit her with down tilt a lot more easily, right? Now I can threaten Sheik from my max range down tilt range, right? This is scary for her now. If I shield and she dash attacks, like all she has to beat my shield from this range is a dash attack, right? Which easily gets grabbed. And then once you grab her, she's up in the air where she doesn't want to be, right? So that's kind of like what you're kind of like looking to beat when it comes to a game plan. It's like, these are the massive ranges that Sheik has that I'm trying to beat. And like we talked about why that's good for her, right? She gets a ton off grab, so you want to be away from her grab. You don't want to be off stage against her, so you want to avoid the grab, which will put you off stage. And then she also has massive hitboxes that are faster than Marth, and they have a big range, right? So you want to stay outside of that range to not get grabbed and not hit by those moves. And now all of a sudden, just because you're not, now that you're playing like here against her instead of here, you just made it that much easier for yourself, right?
I see.
So that's just stage positioning, of course. There's also like, what do you do when you get a grab against Sheik? What do you do once you get her in the air? How do you consistently like keep her in the air? I've like, a lot of new players will be like, well, I'll throw her in the air or I'll hit her, but she keeps coming down on me with a certain move. So it's like, how do I deal with making sure, like, how do I keep her in the air? How do I deal with making sure that when she comes down on me with a move, I'm able to consistently beat it, right? That's what not just what I call, what everybody calls the punish game aspect of Melee. So it's what we're talking about right now is like what you're doing when you're not exactly sure what both characters can get a hit. We have equal opportunity right now, though the positioning makes it better for you. So that's like your neutral, quote unquote. This is what neutral is, like where you position yourself before a hit actually happens. And then your punish game is anything that comes after one of you gets in a hit, right? But in general, having good habits like keeping a certain distance from Sheik versus playing up close to her or way too far are good. And regardless of if you mess up once you're in this position, like you could be in this position, but then just spam F smash all the time. And regardless of if you're winning with this F smash or if you're losing with it all the time, You're just making it a little bit more difficult for Sheik than what you would have to otherwise by not doing it, right?
Yeah.
So that's like a solid game plan for her, is stick to this position as a starting point, and then we haven't talked about it or anything, and I'm sure you have a ton of questions about it, but once you get a hit, why is this position good now, and like how is it beneficial? FD kind of makes it simple because like no matter where you are, you just throw Sheik up in the air and like it's good. But this position makes it easier to get a hit, right? And that's what's important. So before we move on, do you have any questions about that?
No, that makes sense. Positioning is definitely something that I know takes a lot of practice. I just like minute movements, like micro control of my character, is something that I just have zero of. So like just trying to implement this in general over the next week or two.
Okay.
I don't expect to be able to do it very well, but I'll do my best.
Well, I think this is something you can implement right away, right? I think what you're talking about when it comes to like if your micro movements aren't good, and like maybe you have a difficult time setting up, right? Like getting to this position. But like we've played already. I know you can dash dance, right? And you're very good at it. So like let's say I'll give you an example, right? Even against like a level 1 CPU, you can practice this. So I'm going to like go in a game here. Make it level 1 CPU, right? Ideally it should be Sheik, but you get what I'm saying. All you have to do, or even let's make it level 9, just to like show you like a real way you can practice it. Right? She's going to be throwing out her moves. She's going to be doing whatever. All you can practice doing is just dash dancing in this range, right? I know it's supposed to be Sheik right now, and that kind of like Zelda isn't really doing like anything good. But do you see how she's not really able to hit me right now? Okay, finally. All she can really do in this position is try and throw out moves, try and grab me. She can't really though. Or throw out needles, which like you can just react to needles and shield them from this distance, right?
You can.
What's that?
I said you can.
You can, yeah. It sounds terrifying, but because it's far away, you know that that's the only... She only has 2 moves she can hit you with. It's dash attack, or it's a needle. And if she's standing in place, she's likely going to needle, right? And because there's more of a distance between you guys, the needle has to run further, or like move further. So you have more time to react of it like coming at you kind of thing.
Okay.
So don't be discouraged. You definitely can. But even just doing this, like practicing dash dancing, staying a certain distance away from characters. I know they're level 9 CPUs, but like PPMD used to do this. Do you know who PPMD is? Sorry? Yeah. PPMD used to practice doing just that. He calls it shadow boxing, where like your opponent's trying to like throw a punch at you over and over and you're just moving around it. He used to practice doing that to beat like top 5 players in the world, right? Just consistently like having good spacing, keeping around them. And that's what Martha's all about, right? Like good spacing, good movement, blah, blah, blah. And then that's just an easy way to make it happen. So I know right now you're a little worried about like you don't have to make it complicated and throw in a bunch of dash dances or like get up with them and shield and do that, right? Even just doing this is perfectly fine. And then once you're in this position, right? Like I said, they can't reach you with some things, but even this Zelda right now, she's throwing this projectile at me, which is making it a little annoying to like play around it. But like, let's say I see her throw out a move. Because I'm at that position, all I have to do is wait for them to throw that move. I'm still putting pressure on them by being close. But all I have to do is wait for them to throw out a move. And I can just easily come in, forward air, grab, whatever, right? Just because I'm at this position, it makes it a little easier for Marth. And also, right, because I'm further away a little bit, now all of a sudden, like, a tipper hitbox is much easier to hit. I'm getting owned right now. Normally I wouldn't play like this range against Zelda anyway, but it should be Sheik. But now all of a sudden, like, a tipper down tilt is like much easier to hit And they can't crouch cancel it because it's stronger, right? So all this to say, positioning matters a lot. And it doesn't matter, like, it doesn't matter how good your opponent is. Because Sheik has these flaws as a character, this is an objective good thing to do against Sheik. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could do this day one. You could do this at the peak of your melee career. It'll always be a good thing to do. So yeah, that's like the neutral side of it. In terms of like good moves to hit against Sheik, which, like, again, I know we've talked a lot about Sheik. I'm just trying to give you an idea of like why these things matter, right? So like in terms of like what you do after that, we could talk about that if you want. Like, why do you want to hit it down tilt? Why do you want to hit forward air? Why is grab really good, right? But I'm really just trying to instill the idea of like, Sheik is not good in the air. That's just an objective fact. She can't beat Marth's sword. She has nothing to beat it when she's above him. So doing everything you can to like get to this position, getting a grab on Sheik to get her up in the air, and like keeping her at a position where she can't use these safe moves against you, right? You're eliminating the negatives for you, and you're making it so that the pros for you are possible. And that's what you really need to focus on when it comes to a matchup. So we can talk about any matchup now that we've kind of established that, unless you have any questions.
No questions.
So, like I said, I think Sheik is a good matchup to learn. I think Luigi is a good matchup to learn for your like offensive game, like your punish game. I think Fox is just he's like the most common matchup. So we could talk about Fox, or we could talk about Jigglypuff. I have a lot of unique like Jigglypuff notes that are really strong. I've taken them directly from Zane. But I'm happy to talk about whichever one. If they're all a blur, I definitely would recommend Luigi, Fox, or Sheik the most. But if you have a preference of like, you have a goal, like I want to beat this player who's a little better than me, or make it at least a little closer, we can do that too. It's totally up to you.
No, yeah, I'm generally more interested in just like all around overall getting better as quickly as possible. And so honestly, if you could just think of me as like your Pokemon and you're just trying to like train me as quickly as possible.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Like, what would you recommend? Just take the whole lesson from that approach, and I'm totally game.
Okay, cool. So yeah, let's talk about Luigi and Fox. We'll start with Luigi though, because even though Fox is a little more common, I think it's better to build a good habit or like a good like fundamental before you like move on to be like a specialist with Fox, right? Because that's what you'll hear a lot. A lot of Marths are only good against Fox, and that just kind of sucks. You want to be a solid Marth mate, right?
Yeah.
So let's do this same thing, but for Luigi, right? And it's very similar for Luigi. So that's why I sent you the Sheik one that I have, because Luigi has a lot of the same weaknesses as Sheik. So Luigi also cannot contest you vertically in the air. When Luigi is above you in melee, I'm going to show you just a quick example of what that might look like. When Luigi is above you in melee, let's just even talk about it for a second, right? What can he do in this position right now? To either land, to hit me, or anything, right?
Yeah, I don't even know any of Luigi's abilities.
Like his moves? Okay.
I know, I've seen like there's a few of them, like the little horizontal missile one and whatnot, but yeah, I really don't know the character.
Okay, so maybe I'll write this down for you and give you just like notes, maybe as like a like an outside of the lesson thing, and you can have it just as like quick tips of what to do against him. But yeah, you need to know every character's moves. So I'll give you a quick breakdown of Luigi, and that'll help you. So why Luigi is really scary for a lot of characters I'm gonna do this in training mode because it'll be a little easier.
Training mode, Luigi. Training mode.
This isn't the training mode I want. This is
Training
okay.
mode.
Why Luigi is really scary against a lot of characters, and why he's like Luigi is often considered a gimmicky character, where like he has really quick movement and he has really strong combos, and a lot of people will consider him like a really like not amazing but really good melee character, right? Like he has a lot of unique stuff to him, like you said, like the missile, his really long wave dash, and those kind of things. But with Marth, you don't really have to worry about that, because this wave dash, like, that gets beaten by a lot of Marth's grounded moves. Like I said, Luigi can't really go, like, this is me holding full right, and do you see how he's like really slow to move left and right in the air?
Yeah.
Compared to like another character.
Definitely.
That's a really bad weakness for him, right? Which means like when he's in the air, he can't really land very well, or like get away from you being directly underneath him. But what Luigi does do against characters is when he gets put in the air, he has this move, this nair. This is Luigi's nair.
Yeah, I've seen that. And he just kind of holds it, right, for a long time.
Well, he mashes it, but yeah, like the move is out for a long time. But what's important, do you notice how like there's no like startup for this move? It just instantly is like out.
Okay.
So what this means is that when you throw Luigi up in the air, like let's say Sheik up threw me here, right? And I just got out a hit stun. He's just going to be mashing this move and putting a hit box out right below you, right? So if when you try and jump up and hit Luigi, you're going to get hit by this move instead, right? With Marth, though, you don't have to worry about that.
Because of the disjointed.
Exactly. You have a disjointed up tilt. Right? So similar to what we were talking about with Sheik, where like she's spamming forward tilt in front of you and it's terrifying. Marth has the same thing for all of his moves, right? So when Luigi is putting that nair out, right, that little bit of hitbox, but it's like really connected to him, you beat that easily with just a regular up tilt. So that's like the main thing that a lot of Luigis, especially at lower level, will try and catch you with. It's the wave dash with like wave dash and down smash. But like you can learn to like beat that on your own, or like however you might, because they're not going to be good at it right now, especially if you don't know the character. But what you need to know for sure is that little like nair hitbox that Luigi's always putting out when he's in the air. They will mash that all the time. It's a terrible habit they have. But even if they don't go for that, it's fine to just throw up tilt to try and beat it. And then they have to avoid it. And like I said, they're really bad at avoiding things just because of the character is like really slow in the air. Yeah. So like you throw the up tilt out anyway, and then you get to hit them. Or they miss, it misses, but they're still higher up in the air. So then you get to throw the up tilt out again.
I see. So
my advice for now, I will send you like on paper weaknesses, why it's good for you. I should word it as like their weakness and their strengths kind of thing, looking at it from your opponent's perspective. So I'll reword some of this, but what you need to, you'll have these as like special notes to kind of like on paper very easily objective good and bad things for these characters. But I would definitely recommend for like homework, like watch character guides for like what do characters do. So like, sorry, I was watching Mario 64 videos earlier. So like a good example of this would be SSBM tutorials. There's a whole playlist on, I believe it's just what character are you. There's also like how to beat. So these are good tips for like, but I'm pretty much sending you like that anyway, but I still watch them if there's stuff that I don't talk about in here. But
I think I know what you're talking about. The like it shows each character and how they play and like some of the history of them.
Yeah, a little bit.
In some of these videos.
Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Like the are you a Falco player? Are you a Marth player? Right?
Right.
Those videos talk about it. But they're all, I would also recommend, like, I'm trying to find it. They have playlists. I'm just trying to find them all. here we go. Like there is like Luigi tutorials, right? So like here's how to approach with Luigi. So you can start thinking about like okay, now that I know what Luigi wants to how to approach me, what does Marth have to beat that? And kind of go from there. And you can always ask me too. Like I said, you can always message me outside of sessions that we have together. And like I'm happy to answer things. If something requires like a bit of a longer answer, absolutely, let's book a session for that. But like I'll always just like, you have a quick question that you want to know, like, and you don't want to like bother looking it up, shoot me a message. I'll answer it for you. But like, are you a Luigi player is a very good video. How to approach is a very good one to think about, like how to beat him. And then same thing with Marth as well on top of it. Usually there's character guides, but basically you want to just get an idea of like what they're looking for. So I'm going to send you the Are You a Blank Character or Which Character Are You playlist. I want you to watch through these, especially for the matchups you want to learn to beat quickly. So talk about that. I'm gonna edit this Luigi message later, so don't worry about it. It's clearly just the chic one right now. But I'll edit this after our session. Probably won't be until later tonight because I have a couple of things to do after this. But that's one thing I would recommend doing. And then the other one, just watch this Luigi combo video, Melee, right? Just to get an idea of like, you'll see what Luigis are doing to start their combos. You'll start seeing what kind of combos they're looking to hit when they actually hit Marth. So like, there's tons of Luigi combo videos, right? So you don't have to watch them all. Just get a general idea. I would recommend watching some of the more popular ones. Like this one's probably a good one, but it only has 400 views, right? Start with some of the ones that have like 40,000, 10,000, whatever. And I'm sure a lot of these, just because Luigi's, like I said, it's kind of like a mid-tier. They'll probably mostly be on Fox, but there will be some on Marth, right? Like this one clearly has a Marth in it somewhere. Although I guess this one's questionable, so I don't know. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. Watch some combo videos. I'm sure if you were to join like a Luigi Discord too, they might even like be willing to send you that, just like what are considered like good combos. But you want to get a general vibe for like what characters are looking for, right?
Sure.
So learn their moves, sit in Melee, take some time, like, and you can do that just by playing. Like eventually, like you'll kind of get an idea of like, I'm getting hit by this a lot, blah blah blah. But like write it down, and then you'll have some answers of like, okay, now I can base my game plan against like, I'm getting hit a lot against this, right? So basically, I'm just trying to give you the structure of like, this is a game plan, this is what you're looking for, and this is kind of how you like write it out, right? I'll give you like a template that's blank as well, so you can also do that yourself if you want to like create your own. But like I said, I think some of these ones are like objectively good things to do against characters, so you wouldn't really have to modify it much, other than like niche pointers that are saying like, I'm always getting hit by this shine, look out for this on top of it. But maybe another Fox might not do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So yeah, definitely for homework before our next session. I know this one wasn't as much as like playing versus like it was just like talking about theory and stuff. But it's applicable theory, right? It's not just theory. It's just like starting like getting the process going on, like thinking about how to play. So for homework before our next session, like I said, watch these videos, get a vibe for what you're looking for. I will send you, for these, I'll send you Sheik, I'll send you Luigi, and I'll send you a couple notes that are more so just like tips and tricks for Jigglypuff, because like I said, I know that one's like a lot more like non-melee-esque. Jigglypuff's kind of like her own game. So I'll send you some tips and tricks that'll probably help you for now. And then, like I said, when it comes to like the Fox or Falco matchup, don't worry too much about your game plan, as in strengths and weaknesses for stage positioning and those kinds of things. Right now, just worry about hitting them as hard as you can in punish. And if you want to know how to do that, how to combo Fox with Marth melee. Millions of guides on this, right? The chain grab guide, how to edge guard Fox, how to lose as Marth against Fox, but this is actually how to beat it. It's just sarcastic.
Yeah.
So take everything that's said in this video like in reverse order. Every essential shine combos, this is like what they're looking for. How to destroy Foxes, Falco and Marth. But yeah, there's tons of guides on like how to combo Marth or how to combo Fox with Marth. Yeah, how to chain grab Fox and Falco. So I would definitely recommend watching this chain grab guide more than the SSBM tutorials one. The SSBM tutorials one might be a lot more. This one might be a lot more, like beginner friendly in the language, but some of the things in it aren't like 1,000% correct nowadays. Like it's 7 years old, right? The chain grab's changed a little bit. So I would maybe just watch both. Watch that one first to get an idea of like what you're looking for. Watch this one for the correct data, right? This one's 3 years old. So yeah, I'll send you this link too. But yeah, we have about 10 minutes left. I know I've been rambling, and I don't want to overwhelm you with a ton of stuff. But yeah, let's talk about how are you feeling about this? Any questions, things like that.
Yeah, no, everything you said makes sense. I'll try to implement as much of it as I can. I think maybe my question on a more sort of meta level of the game is like, regardless of if I'm focusing on these things while I'm playing against somebody, do you think it's okay to just kind of like accept that like I just need to put in like many hundreds of games even without necessarily improving on any of these aspects? Because what I find is that I jump in the game and I'm trying to focus on, say, positioning or whatever, but it's like I don't know, like I guess like my just ability to even like press the buttons or like even like sometimes remember which button is which ability is so bad at times, contrary to what it might look like when I'm just in the lab doing my movement, that it feels like sometimes maybe I just need to like not think about things and just like get the intuition
comfortable,
the base controller down, and whether or not that makes sense to just kind of take that approach for say like a week or two and just like get comfortable and then try to implement more foundational strategic elements.
I think they go hand in hand. I think what you're describing about like being comfortable with the controller or anything like that, that stuff you should be solo practicing. These are things you should be practicing when you're playing with people, right? So like one thing that is very common in Melee, and I'm sure you're already figuring it out very quickly, the game is extremely difficult. It is the hardest game you will ever play, right? Yeah. So you will never play perfect. And do you know Mango?
Yes.
Yeah. So Mango is a top player for like over 15 years, right? And something that Mango says a lot is that nobody is ever going to play perfect. Your goal in Melee as a player is to try to get as close to perfect as possible. But it's impossible. It's an unattainable goal, but you still try it anyway, right? So what I mean by that is like you can sit and practice perfect movement, perfect punish on bots, and you can like training packs nowadays are so advanced to the point where you can like set their DI, you can set all the counterplay, all the parameters, whatever. You can make it so that you are the perfect punish player, the perfect movement player, whatever. You're still going to mess it up when you play. And that's just that you're human at the end of the day, right? So why I'm saying this is it doesn't matter if you're a week into the game, you could be 10 years into the game. You're still going to mess up every now and then. You can definitely practice your movement and your buttons and all that and get it closer. But no matter what, even if you are playing perfect, on top of it all, your opponent might not play perfect. So they might do things that are weird or different and things you're not expecting, right? So that's why these things we're talking about are good no matter what level you're playing at, is because you can always revert back to these as like a safe space, right? Like no matter what, how bad the Luigi is beating you or how bad you're beating the Luigi, you can go back and do these things against Luigi and like you'll always be doing good, you know? So it's not, that isn't really something I would worry too much about. I would definitely still recommend, because you're new, you're in the difficult phase right now where it's like you're into the game, but you're not like fully aware of like everything that's happening around the stage right now because you don't know the character's moves and stuff, right? So you're in the stage where it's why it's hard to get into like any fighting game in general is just because you have to take in an insane amount of knowledge and retain it. And whether you retain it all instantly or it takes you a year or so, that's perfectly fine. But on top of trying to develop good habits from the beginning so that you don't have to correct them and fix them and struggle with that later on, you have to begin to develop habits in general anyway, right? Like, so am I pressing the right button for jump, or am I wave dashing properly, or anything like that? So you can solo practice those things, but what I would recommend, and like what I used to do when I was learning it, is I would literally go in training mode, right?
Training mode.
I would pick a stage I thought was like relevant for what I would play in tournament. So like Battlefield is always like the stage a lot of people start out on. And then on top of doing my general, like I'm practicing wave dashing or I'm practicing my chain grab or whatever, I would also practice just moving like around the ranges I thought were good to play against Sheik, right? So not only are those like those ranges things and the matchup like tips I gave you are like what you should be doing while you're playing someone, they're also things you can practice too, right? Like you can practice staying underneath Sheik in the air, right? Like if I go into a match or a training mode, I can literally just throw Sheik up in the air and give myself a mini challenge of like hit her as many times as I can before she lands, right?
Yeah.
Or I can practice, if I want to practice my movement, I think my movement isn't that really good. Well, then all I have to do is practice moving around Sheik on the stage the way I want to, right? So like if I'm like, oh, I want to be this distance from her, but I also kind of want to threaten her from a platform and do like a landing forward air, then all I do is practice my landing forward air while staying in this distance against Sheik, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely more kind of functional practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like, rote memorization, like, yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, oh, okay, sorry, my Spotify or something just like restarted on my computer. It freaked me out. I thought my computer's turned off. But that's basically what I'm trying to say, is that regardless of what level you're at in the game or what you're doing at any point, these are good things to have. They're good, solid like matchup tips for what to do. So you can practice around them, or you can just play with them or revert back to them if you're doing something else in the game, right? Like this is your default.
Right.
Like I said in our last session, when you're playing melee, you want these things to be like your subconscious thing, and you want your focus to be on what they're actually doing that like kind of like deviates from this a little bit, right? But no matter what, you can force these situations all the time. So yeah, practice around that is what I would suggest. Don't worry too much about if your movement isn't as good as you want it to be, or if your punish isn't there. You have these to build off of. And like I said, this is your foundation. This is what you're building off of. So sure, maybe you drop a punish, or maybe you drop a movement option or something like that. But you can always come back to this and start again, right?
Yeah.
But I think on top of this, like I said, I don't think it's a good waste of time, or a good use of time, sorry, for us to get into the nitty gritty about like, so talked about like a quick like 2 sentence for each thing. And I think that's good just for starting, but like we don't need to get into the nitty gritty of like, how do you juggle Sheik right now? Because you need to learn Sheik's moves to begin with, you know? But you can still keep these stage positions and like general tips and tricks to play against Sheik for when you do play it. And then you'll kind of start having questions like, okay, I'm doing these things and I feel like I'm playing okay, but I keep getting hit by forward air. Why do I do that? And then just for our next session, we'll talk about how do you beat Sheik forward air based on our game plan, right?
Yeah.
How does that affect that? So like I said, it's the foundation. It's consider this like your day one of like learning matchups, right? And I'll give you certain matchups to practice, and I'm giving you character guides, and I'm giving you how to combo characters. So you'll have a bunch of like information to have on your hand, and then this is going to allow you to start asking questions. And also, like I said, or like we talked about earlier today, like how do you analyze videos? So you have your game plan, you have what you know you're looking for, but if something's going wrong, you can look at what's going wrong based on what you know is objectively right? Or what you know is objectively true.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. It's great to have this because I can revert to this whenever I'm watching the VODs. And
yeah, sure. Exactly. And you can practice with it, and it's what you're growing off of as a player to like get better at, you know? So
yep.
This is like your biggest resource right now, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Outside of like just generally learning the character's moves. That's a for sure number one. Do that. But yeah.
Yeah.
Even still, like it'll be easier to learn the character's moves because you have this a little bit, right? Like if you know Luigi's gonna come in with you at a wave dash, and you know what a wave dash is, what move is he doing with a wave dash, right? And that kind of helps with that. So yeah.
Great.
Cool. Any last questions just before we end things?
No, man, that covers it. That's really gonna help. So
okay.
I'll definitely try to just implement it as much as I can this week and let you know by next weekend.
Awesome. So yeah, let's say we'll try again next weekend. That's totally fine with me. And also don't forget, message me if you have any questions. I know you've been playing, so if you have any questions, like even really quick, how do I beat this? I may not get back to you instantly, but I got you, man. I will answer everything. So don't worry about it if it's not in the session.
Super cool. Appreciate you, buddy.
No problem. So yeah, I will send you the video as soon as I can. Probably will be later tonight because, like I said, I have a couple things I need to get done right away. But yeah, for sure, I will hook you up. But yeah, I'm gonna head out. Thank you so much once again for booking with me. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Talk to you then.
All right, bye now.